All right, my smartest artists, this is week 5 or lesson 5 for our distance learning in the art room. And this week we are gonna get into that art kit and we are gonna use our brand new watercolors. So before we get started, we're just gonna tap our Art Smart brain and we're gonna think back to some of those ways that we can take care of our art tools, and you can share that with maybe some siblings or some family members. So we're gonna review how to take care of our brush, doing ballerina brush, and also how to properly rinse a brush so that we're not tap dancing brushes, but we're dabbing brushes. So let's review that before we get started. All right, my smartest artists, so let's review how we can take care of our art tools while using them to create art. The first thing is you're gonna get this brand new brush in your watercolor set. And we've talked a lot about in the art room about how ballerina brush should always dance on her tippy toes. So when we're using the brush, we can see that this is fragile, the brush is, and we like to be able to use it on its tippy toes and flat. Ballerina brush never wants to scoot on her bottom where we are dragging it or pushing it flat on the paper. That will ruin the shape of the brush. Also, we haven't used watercolors a lot in the art room, so we want to be careful to notice the difference between the tempera cakes and the watercolors. Watercolors are a lot softer. That means that we could push into it and make a dent, and that would ruin the watercolors. So these are definitely softer. When we use our brush with water, you can use any type of Tupperware, recycled yogurt cups, any type of cup in your house with water. Remember, we don't fill it to the top, we just do it halfway. You don't have to have one of these. But when we use our brush, we're going to dip it in the water and put a little bit of water on each color first. That way we're getting the watercolors ready with some water in them. Now, when you go to get the paint, you can load your brush with water. And then we want a ballerina brush, twirl the brush on its tippy toes to load the brush. And we've learned in the art room that the longer we twirl our brush, the more paint will be on the brush. And then when I go to the paper, I want to use gentle pressure on the paper. If I'm trying to do a very small area, it can dance on its tippy toes. If I want to paint a larger area, I can gently lay it on its side and cover more of the area using my brush flat. But I'm not scooting it on its bottom, I'm just brushing it flat on its side. We've also talked about the proper way to rinse our brush, so you can teach your family this. When we do it, we can gently swish, swish, dab, dab. Swish, swish, dab, dab. When we dab out the brush, we're getting the excess water out and we're being careful with our brush. All right, my smartest artists, now that we have our art kits at home, it's time to break into those art tools. Today we are going to be doing a value landscape. We're going to be using our new watercolors to paint today, and we're going to learn about the value scale and how we can utilize with watercolors different tones and tints of a color. So we're going to create a landscape, and a landscape is typically of outside, and we are going to make sure our paper is horizontal. So go ahead and set up your thick white paper that was at the bottom of your art kit. Make sure it's in the direction of horizontal. You're going to take a pencil. It could be the one that you got in your art kit or just a different type of pencil. And you're going to take our finger, you're going to run it across the top to the corner, go down about 1/3 of the way. We want to be thinking about 4 different lines to make mountains because we are going to make 4 different value tones. So I stopped about a little bit down there with your finger, and then I'm going to create some mountains. And mountains aren't always the exact same. I'm going to do some sort of curve and zigzag line to make the first mountain range, and those are going to be the farthest away from us. I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to make sure it's pretty different. And this line represents the mountains that are in front of these, so they're a little bit closer to us. Move my finger down. I'm gonna make another one. These might be more hills. Trying not for them to be exactly the same as these, so that they're all a little bit different. And then I'm gonna make one more here, and it's gonna be just kind of some lower hills. So these are mountains. These are gonna be the farthest away, and then they're gonna get closer as they get towards us. Right now, we have just created some lines. We can't tell if they're mountains, and we can't tell what is closest and what's far away. But using our watercolor paints, we can create that idea of distance with how much paint we use. So you're gonna think of your one color, because we're gonna make these mountains all the same color. So you're gonna have to look at your new watercolors and decide which color do I want to use. I'm gonna choose purple, but you're welcome to use any of these colors. You can even mix a tertiary color if you want over here, but make sure you mix up a good amount because we're gonna be using that color all the way through. So the first set of mountains, they are the closest to us. We're gonna make these black because they are close. So go ahead and dip your paint into the black, and then I am going to fill in this whole section below the first line. That's going to be our closest mountain range. It'll be the darkest color. Now that we have the front or the closest to us mountain shaded in black, we are now going to go to the next row of mountains, and those are going to be dark. The darkest color you can get with the color that you've chosen. So you might have chosen any of these. I chose purple. So we remember from art class that the longer we twirl, remember ballerina brush dances on her tippy toes, the longer we twirl in a color of paint, the more paint will load on the brush. So I'm gonna twirl it really long because I want to get a really dark color. And I'm going to come in here. I'm using the brush pretty much on its tippy toe to get up next to this line. It's easier when the brush is a bit smaller. And this is still wet, so I'm holding my hands up so that I can't smudge the black part. And I'm gonna go in with the most purple paint I can. Maybe you're using a different color, but you wanna load that brush with a lot of paint. When it starts to go light or the brush gets empty, go back to the paint, twirl it around. When I get close to this edge, I'm gonna bring the brush up to its tip, and I'm gonna go slower right here around the edges, a lot slower. Okay, my smartest artists, I've completed the second row of mountains with the darkest color, and that's why I really twirled it around to get the most dense part of my color. We are gonna show perspective, meaning that each thing as it gets farther away, it's lighter in color. And if you step outside the school, or depending on where you live, you can look over at even Monterey and see that the farther they are away, the lighter the mountains are. Now, one way we could do value is by mixing paints with white or with black. But because we're using watercolors, we can simply use water to change up the tone or the value of our color. So we did black first. We did our darkest and purest color by twirling for a long time. This next layer, I'm gonna go a little bit lighter, and I'm gonna do that by adding water. So over here on the side of my watercolor tray, there's this whole side that we can use as a paint palette. And I'm gonna take my purple, and I'm gonna take some of the paint over to the lid, and I'm going to add some paint there. When I get on here, I wanna be sure that it's a lighter tint of this one. And I can do that by simply adding water. So I'm gonna go more of a medium purple, not as dark as that, and I do that by adding water to the purple. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna fill up this space, showing that it's a little bit lighter by thinning it down with water. I'm gonna create my third layer here. So after you finish this third row, you can see that we have a change in our colors from a dark color to a light color, and it almost looks like it's a completely different color of paint, but it's not. It's just that I used the same color and added water to it to thin it out. That's what's so cool about watercolors. We can change the color just by adding more water. So this last one, we need more paint or more water. What do you think? Yeah, we need more water because we want this to even be a lighter color. Now, my first round at it looks pretty close. So I can just directly go to the bucket of water and bring the water in to move around the color that I already have on there. Another technique you could do for this one, we've learned about it in the art room, is the wet on wet technique, and you can just simply go in and paint some water on here first, and then come in with the color and spread it around. Now this isn't watercolor paper, so the way that the paper receives the paint and the water is gonna be a lot different than if we were using watercolor, but it's okay because we're just trying to show value in our perspective of our landscape. And all we need to happen is that the colors are getting lighter as the mountains get farther away. So less paint, more water as we get lighter and farther away. This part doesn't take as long because we're really just using a lot of water, a lot more water. Okay, so I have the first row of mountains that are closest to me. They're black because they're closest. Then I have the truest purple where I twirled it for a long time. Same color, but just adding more water for the next mountain range. And then the farthest mountain range, all the way in the back has more water, less paint. Now you could leave your sky black if you want to, or you can decide to maybe make it a color or a sunset. But if you're gonna color your sky, I recommend not using the color that you just used to create your mountain range and to show your perspective. So you go ahead and make a decision about what you want to do with the sky, and then we'll see how it looks in the end. So I decided to do a different color for my sky. I decided to do blue. Whatever color you decide to do for your sky, I recommend doing it light, which is just by adding a lot of water to it so that it doesn't really take away from your value scale here of your mountains. When you're happy with your value painting and it's dry, it's possible that your paper might start to curl, but that's okay. When it's completely dry, go ahead and set a magazine on it or a book and it'll flatten it back out. That's what I usually do in the art room. When it's dry, go ahead and take a picture of yourself holding your artwork and upload it to the art and music portfolio, and it'll be titled, the activity will be called watercolor painting, and please share your finished work and enjoy your new art tools.